Hi guys, I wanted to make a video today about the first 3 months of having a newborn. My baby Silas is officially 3 months old, so I just want to make a video about my experience and what we came in contact with, and just the setbacks and everything like that we've had, just so for people who are expecting or anything like that, they're not sure what to expect for the first 3 months. This is just what happened to us, and so I just thought I would share that just to help other moms out, so in case anything that happened to me happened to them, they can be like, oh, you're not alone, and there are definitely some challenges and some benefits, so just keep watching. Alright, so I'll start by saying that everything that everybody tells you is true. Every stereotype that they tell you about not sleeping and, like they are gonna cry, you're gonna be sleep deprived, just anything that people tell you while you're pregnant and that you wish that they would just shut up about, that's true. I was definitely one of those people that I was just like, I wish somebody would stop talking about how, like, I'm never gonna sleep again. But it's just something that you don't want to hear, but it is correct, at least on our part. The first few weeks are like rough. Like, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. Like they're really hard, and it is good to know. And what got me through is that everything is constantly changing when you have a baby, and so whatever is bothering them today, tomorrow it could be something completely different. It could be something just complete opposite, or they could never have that problem again. Like, that's the only thing that kept me going, is that whatever he was doing that was really frustrating, and I, like not sleeping or having an upset stomach, I knew would eventually like go away or change, and so I wouldn't get too hung up on like, this is really stressful, or this is just really like, it sucks and he's unhappy and I'm unhappy. But I knew that it would eventually get better, day by day by day. It just evolves constantly. So starting from like our first night home, maybe from like 7 p.m. until, I don't know, like 7 a.m., he just cried the entire night. He screamed all night long. We had no idea what we were doing wrong. We didn't know what to do. We couldn't get him to, like, we would get him to eat a little bit, but we couldn't get him to like eat right. We couldn't get him to sleep. We constantly kept like changing his diaper. Like, we were trying everything. We had no idea what we were doing wrong. We had no clue. And not to be like the first time parents, but we went ahead and called like the nurse's line that's available through our doctor's office, and they were just like, well, do you have, his temperature? And that's how they're going to decide if he needed to go to the hospital or not. And apparently we never bought a thermometer, so we didn't own one. And they're like, well, if you don't know his temperature, then you need to bring him in. And so we made an appointment for the doctor the next day after we brought him home from the hospital, and took him in, and the doctor just, asked us a bunch of questions, and it just turns out that he was really hungry. I was only breastfeeding him. We hadn't given him any formula. We only owned like sample sizes of formula, and we did the night before try to give him that, but I think he was so angry and so stressed out because he had been screaming for so long that we couldn't get him to eat anything. Like, he was just beyond helping. And so the doctor gave us a can of formula. She was like, start supplementing this with breastfeeding him. Which didn't bother me. It really didn't. I just, from the beginning, I knew that I would breastfeed him until it was convenient, as long as it was convenient. But if he needs formula, he needs formula. I want my baby to be fed. I want him to be happy. Like, I don't care how that happens. And so I continued to breastfeed him and give him formula, and that was working for us for a long time, for 3 months. And so that was like our first big issue, is that we didn't realize that he wasn't getting enough food from breastfeeding. The hospital never explained to me that that was even a thing that I may need to do. And I know that may sound naive, but I wasn't aware that I may have to supplement formula also. Like, I just thought you either breastfeed them or you give them formula. Like, I didn't think that I could do both or that I needed to. And so it was really annoying because in the hospital, all of the lactation consultants were like, oh my gosh, like he latches so well, you're doing such a good job, like you're great at this, and he's so good at breastfeeding. So I didn't even have a concern that that was, you know, an even option. Like, and they didn't tell me either, but I guess every baby is born at a certain weight and then they lose a little bit of weight. And then eventually they gain it back, but he lost too much weight, and that's how they could tell, like, that he wasn't eating enough. And he had lost that same amount, you know, in the hospital. And so the hospital never told me, like, hey, just so you know, like, he's lost a lot of weight, you're probably gonna have to supplement formula. So that was kind of annoying on my part. Like, my hospital experience wasn't that great. The actual part of having him was perfectly fine, but the after part where we were in the hospital for 3 days and we just had to, like, live there, that was terrible. So that first part was really stressful in figuring out what we did wrong the very first night. And yeah, so then from there, he did end up having, I don't know if any doctor ever told us that it was actually colic, but he did have stomach problems. Like, he wouldn't, like, poop regularly, and he would spit up a lot. And you could just, I don't know, you could hear his stomach, like, it was so loud, like, just gurgling. And so we had to go through a couple of different formulas before we figured out what worked for us, which right now is the Gerber brand. We went through Enfamil, and that one was fine. Similac actually made him, like, projectile vomit. And that one also too, the Similac, was whenever you shook it up and mixed it, it got really foamy, and so he was getting, like, a lot of air, and that was upsetting his stomach more. And then we actually give him the Gerber brand formula now, and we also give him Gerber probiotic drops since he was, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks old. We've been doing that, and we still do it to this day, once a day. And I give it to him at night in his night bottle, and that has helped him, you know, immensely. He's just regulated. He doesn't throw up as much. He still spits up because he's a baby, but he was just like, he would drink a bottle and then he would throw the entire thing up, and so that was, like, stressing me out too. And then I know that would just make him really mad, and then he was hungry again. Like, it was really hard for us to figure out, like, what we were doing wrong, and that took us a while to understand what we needed to do right. And so we've been giving him Gerber, I think, since he was probably 3 weeks old now. And we haven't changed it since because we haven't had an issue. So, well, that's probably the one we'll stick with, which is fine, but it's also kind of like the most expensive formula. So, of course, that's the one that he needs, is the most expensive one. So, another problem that we had within the first few weeks was when he got circumcised in the hospital, so we had to dress the wound, like, in a cotton bandage and Vaseline. And so I'm assuming, I think now that I think about it, because I've had more sleep, because of the Vaseline, like, he was constantly peeing out of his diaper. I don't even understand how it was happening, but in those first few weeks, it just kept happening, and we couldn't figure out why. We couldn't stop it. We tried everything. But we were really sleep deprived, so nothing really made sense anyway. But now that I think about it, I think it was the Vaseline because it wasn't absorbing into the diaper because of the Vaseline. But every single time we would change his diaper and we'd lay him down to go to sleep and we'd put him in a swaddle, and whenever he woke up, he had peed through his diaper, through his clothes, through the swaddle, like, onto his bed. Like, so it was just this constant, like, every nap time we had to strip the sheets and wash everything. And he wouldn't sleep unless he was in this specific swaddle. And so we would have to wash it, get it dry by the time it was time for him to take a nap again, because he wouldn't sleep otherwise. And so that was chaos. It was really stressful. And it stopped happening once we stopped having to dress the circumcision. So I've got all kinds of, like, I tried Googling it, and they were like, oh, you need to point it down, or you need to use a bigger diaper, and, like, just all kinds of stuff. And so we tried it all, and nothing stopped it from happening. I'm just assuming, I guess maybe we could have used more gauze to keep that, you know, in. But that was something that I was just like, oh my God, we're gonna have this kid constantly pees out of his diaper. Like, I didn't know how to stop it. That was really stressful. And then in the beginning, like I said, the very stereotypical thing that everybody tells you is that you're not gonna sleep. And let me tell you, you're not. Like, I really hate to be this person because I hated it when I was pregnant. But it sucks, y'all. Like, he was so, like, it's perfectly timed regimen. Every 2 to 3 hours, he was awake. You feed him. You just kind of hang out with him for a little bit and put him down for another nap. And he would sleep for almost exactly 2 hours. And so that just got really, really hard. And we were both getting up and taking care of him and trying to sleep during that 2 hours. And it wasn't until like maybe he was 5 weeks old that my husband was like, I think we need to take turns, and you know, we take shifts. And so it's like, from this time to this time, you're gonna wake up and take care of him, and one person sleeps, and then we switch, and then the other person sleeps and the other person takes care of him. And I can't even explain to you how much better our lives got when we did that. And nobody told us to do that. And I'm trying not to sound super naive, but we had no idea what we were doing or how to work it. And we were constantly wanting to be awake with each other, just to be able to see each other and to be able to help each other, because it's really hard to have a baby and you be in charge of taking care of him by yourself. There's nobody there to help you do anything. So I give a lot of props to single moms or single dads who do that constantly, but it's stressful. And I'm so thankful that I had my husband here to help me. And I mean, I'm so glad that he realized that that's what we needed to be doing, was to alternate. And so right now in our lives, I work the night shift and he works during the evenings. And so he was like, we need to start reflecting this before we go back to work. And so at nighttime, I would stay up with Silas and I would take care of him. And when he napped, I would take a nap. But whenever he woke back up, I would still get up with him until like, 8 a.m. And then my husband would take over and I would come into the room and sleep. And the other person would just hang out with him in the living room or in the nursery. And that is immensely better. Maybe for the first 2 weeks, you guys can like just always be together and do it together until you get the hang of changing a diaper by yourself, because for a long time we would change the diaper together. Like one of us held the legs and one of us would put the diaper on. And so looking back, it seems kind of silly, but in that moment it was just like, I can't change a diaper unless you're here to help me. And so once you get past that and you realize like it's not the end of the world if you have to change a diaper by yourself, or it's not the end of the world if I have to just set him down so that I can go make a bottle. He doesn't always have to be, being held. So once you get past that, you realize like it's very routine. It's not so bad. And I will say, I know I talked about like the negatives of the first few weeks, and I struggle thinking of positives in those first few weeks. But once they start getting they start being more awake and he's more, like recognizing our faces and our voice and starts smiling at you, it makes it all worth it. And I promise you that. So if you're going through those first 2 weeks right now, or first 3 weeks, and you're just like, this sucks, just know that it gets better. It really, really does. All right. And so in his second month, like I said, Tyler and I work opposite schedules. We work the same place, but we just work opposite schedules. And so whenever we went back to work, it was definitely an adjustment. It's a little bit chaotic at first, and we were really struggling to understand what we needed to do to make it work, because Silas was not sleeping at night, and my husband gets off at work at 10 p.m. and that's when I start work, is 10 p.m. So I would be at work, he would get home, Silas would be awake, and he would be awake with him all night until 6 a.m. when I got home. And so I would get home, I would have to take Silas so that my husband could sleep to get ready for his shift, which starts at 2. So he would go to bed. I would stay up and take care of Silas because he needed to be able to sleep. And so eventually I would get him to go to bed, and I would come lay down too and go to sleep, and then he would sleep until like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, which was great for me because I needed the sleep. And then, we were doing that cycle for like 2 weeks where my husband, was really struggling because he wasn't sleeping when he was supposed to, and so my husband wasn't getting any sleep, and he was getting like 5 hours of sleep in the morning instead of at night when you're supposed to sleep. And Silas wasn't really taking naps during the day at all, so I was struggling because I need to sleep during the day so that I can work at night. We finally had this like aha moment, which thankfully came from Tyler's sister, who she has a 1-year-old, and so she was just like, look, this is what you need to do, and gave us like boom, 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 and she was like, fix these things, you know. And so we didn't realize how many things that we were doing kind of like wrong, or not wrong, but just things we could be doing better. And so one of them was that we always kept our house kind of dark, and that's just how we have been since before having a kid. I mean, we don't turn the lights on during the day because we don't see the point. Or, you know, to keep the house cool, we keep the windows shut and everything like that. And so she told us that we need to have, well, you know, the windows open, the lights on, whatever, during the day so that he's aware that it is daytime. And at night, we need to keep him in his room with the lights off. We have a nightlight on so we can just see just enough, but he needs to know that at nighttime it's dark and this is how we are at night. Like, it's time to sleep. Another thing was that he was watching TV a lot, not like purposefully, like we'd set him down in front of it, but just we're sitting on the couch feeding him and we have the TV on. And so that, I think, was just, he was just so alert and awake from watching TV at night. Like, he never would go to sleep because he'd just watch the TV with me. And obviously he doesn't know what's going on. He's just staring at the bright screen. So we stopped doing that. We stopped watching TV as much. I don't watch TV around him. My husband still does because, you know, sports exist, which is fine. It's okay to do it sometimes. But that, and then she told us that we need a routine. Whatever it is, we have to figure out what works for us, but we need the same time, the same thing, routine. And I didn't realize that. Like, I didn't realize that baby needs structure. You need this schedule, and that helps them immensely. And ever since we did that, it took us like maybe 4 days to do this and get it fixed, and he has never looked back. Like, we've fixed it completely. And so what our routine is my husband is at work from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. so I watch him, and around 6:45 I give Silas a bath. And then we do his bath time routine. Like, I put lotion on him, you know, change his diaper, get him a new outfit, and I get his bottle ready. And then I take him upstairs to his room where it's dark. Only the nightlight is on so I can just see just enough of what I'm doing. And usually that's around like 7 or 7:15. I feed him the bottle and then I put him to bed. So he's usually in bed by like 7:30, between 7:30 and 8. And he sleeps until like 6 a.m. the next day, which is fantastic, and it has really been working for us. And so whenever he wakes up in the morning, my husband gets up with him, and when I get home from work at 6 a.m., I go to sleep. And so I sleep until it's time for my husband to go to work. He usually wakes me up around 12:30, and then I get up and I do it again. I watch Silas until, you know, 6:45. It's time to start his bedtime routine again. That has helped us like tremendously. And then the first couple of weeks, he sleeps through the night now, but the first couple of weeks he didn't. He would wake up in the middle of the night. And when he does, you know, wake up at midnight or 2 a.m., my husband would make a bottle for him and take it upstairs and feed it to him upstairs in his room. We never took him out of the room. We never turned the lights on. Like, we need to let him know that it's okay to wake up to eat, but afterwards we're going back to sleep. Like, we're not going to be awake. And it took a couple of times for that to work and take effect. He would still be up for like an hour or 2 hours, but my husband would just keep him in the room. He would just rock him or walk around the room with him, you know, like just whatever it takes to get him to go back to sleep and to make him understand that, you know, when I wake up in the night, we're just gonna eat and we're going back to sleep. Like, so nothing in the room gives him any kind of stimulation. And I know it sounds kind of cruel, but whenever I'm in there with him, I try not to talk to him because that's stimulating him and keeping him awake, and he's gonna want to talk back to me now. Well, now he does. He talks back. But yeah, like just zero stimulation whatsoever. So have a very dull nightlight, like I said, so you can see enough to change his diaper or whatever. That's at least what we do. And we have a fan in his room. We actually have 2 fans because it's kind of hot upstairs where his room is, and so I have a little bitty box fan and then an oscillating fan on. And so the noise from that is our white noise. We don't have a white noise machine, or we don't play music or anything, but he knows whenever I take him upstairs in his room, I turn those fans on, and you know, he already gets kind of drowsy just from that. Like, that is his white noise, which is fine because as adults, my husband and I, we use a box fan to go to sleep because my husband can't sleep in complete quiet. I could fall asleep anywhere. But yeah, so I figured that's probably more helpful than a white noise machine because I don't want him to be dependent on that always. But yeah, that is like our nighttime routine that has worked for us, and I can't even explain how much better our lives got once he started sleeping when he was supposed to and not just like randomly for 8 hours in the middle of the day. But he's always been a good sleeper. Like, he's very like clockwork. It was just a matter of setting him to the right time. And then in this 3rd month is definitely when I say like that, in my opinion, like everything gets better because he's so interactive now. You can talk to him and you can, you know, make funny faces at him and like make noises, and he reacts. And so that for me is the best. That's what I've been waiting for this whole time, and my husband too. It's pretty funny because he has like a funny little laugh, and he's reacting now. Like, if you tickle him, he laughs, and that's so cute. He's definitely started teething. I don't see any like teeth coming through, but we have a lot of teething toys, and I have to grab his hand and put it in his hand, but he immediately is just like, "Rah!" And so he will chew on that forever, and he loves it. And that's the only thing that's been kind of the downside of the 3rd month, is that he gets kind of fussy and frustrated, and we don't understand why, and then we realize that it was definitely teething. We also get a wet washcloth, like a cool washcloth, and he loves to like gnaw on that. It actually is like probably his favorite more than teething toys. But that was hard for us to like what the heck is happening, because I didn't think you could start teething at 3 months, but I guess that's when it starts, is 3 months, and until they get all their teeth, I guess. Oh god. But yeah, that has been just fun to see him interact with toys now. Like, I could give him a rattle or something, and he'll actually like grasp it and hold on to it and like move it around. And he has a play mat that we lay him on that's got toys that hang down, and he actually like swats at them and like plays with them now. So that's been fun to see. He has started like almost rolling over. I can put him on his stomach and he can roll to his back. But he doesn't do it consistently. He just does it randomly when he feels like it. I really think he's really close to rolling from his back to his stomach, because just this last 2 days I've been putting him, you know, on his back on the changing table or something, and he starts like pushing himself like to try and stretch to roll over. Obviously I stop him so he doesn't like roll off, but he's definitely trying. So I really think that that's really close. And once he does that, I can't put him in his swaddle anymore. We put him in a zip up swaddle that kind of like makes him look like a little starfish, like his arms are up like this. But he has used that ever since he was really little, and he loves it. And so I have the transition swaddle where the hands zip off. And so once he starts rolling over, I have to unzip it and put his arms through, so if he does roll over, he's got his hands free. But I'll probably still zip him up in the swaddle. It'd be more just like a little sleeping bag at that point, but we will cross that bridge when we get to it. All right, so that's my review of the first 3 months. That's what our experience has been, and what you know, has happened with us and happened with Silas, and everything that I've learned. And I will tell you that every day I learn something new. I really, really do. And I still am like slightly that first time parent where any little thing that he does, I have to Google it. And Google is your enemy, because no matter what you want to Google, like, you're gonna find what you're looking for. Like, if I'm worried that he shouldn't be doing this at this age, I'm gonna find that like he shouldn't be doing that. Or if I think like, oh, he's supposed to be doing this, if I Google that, I'm gonna find it. So I definitely would say try your best not to Google every little thing, because you will drive yourself crazy. because I still do it, and I have to tell myself to take everything just like with a grain of salt, because yeah, there's so many ways to do things with babies. There's just not one answer to everything. You wish that there was, and there's not. So yeah, I would definitely say just talk to your fellow moms. That helps me a lot whenever I'm just like, what the heck is this and why is he doing that? I have quite a few people who have recently had babies before me, so I'm just like, hey, what is this? And they're just like, oh yeah, this is what they do. So that helps me a lot. And then of course, just whenever I go to the pediatrician, I write down my questions. Any question I have, I write it down, and so when I get there, she's like, all right, what do you want to talk about? And so I just get my phone out, and I'm like, okay, here's this. But it helps me cover all my bases and make sure that I don't leave there with more questions. So I would definitely recommend that. And yeah, I will make another video about Silas, but probably at the 6-month mark, and I'll tell you about, those last 3 months, and we'll see where we are there.